I had a rail car come in a little while ago with something a little bit unusual on it. And I thought, that's weird. I don't think I've ever had that happen before. And then I walked down 2 cars and found the same thing again. So I had 2 cars that I don't think I've ever had this happen before on. All right, I got this rail car here. WLPX 44133. That's a Westlake Polymers car. Clearly ACF built. It's got ACF hoppers on it that are 1606 cubic feet on the ends, 1294 cubic feet with ACF valves on it. Although it's actually a newer type of valve than you would typically see on a 5800 cubic foot car. That's an older style. And so either it was, you know, a fairly late build for a 5800 cubic foot after they'd went to the sort of bullhorn type handles rather than the little T handles, or they were upgraded in a rebuild. My guess is just was towards the, it was probably just a later 5800 cubic foot car. Anyhow, what's really unusual is there's no build date. Now, I've had some cars that don't have this little black box on it, and consequently they still have a build date on them. They just put it in the paint somewhere. Well, this car, it's not anywhere in the paint on here as to what the build date was. It's really weird. And then, let me see. It was repainted in 2014 by Mississippi Railcar, MRCX. Their logo is much clearer on the other side. The graffiti's part way over it on this side. But even on the other side, there's nothing that says when the car was originally built. This is just the repaint date. ACF center flow. We'll look at the brake diagram. Maybe that'll give us a clue. Okay, so it does say ACF on the brake diagram. It is after they went to the flat plate, but they went to a flat plate, I think maybe in the 80s or early 90s, so that really don't mean a lot. But you can see over here again, no date for when it was built. Well, how do I want to do this? Let's walk to this side of this car down here. 2 cars down, I got another car with no date when it was built. And I don't think, you know, I haven't always looked at the date on every car that come in, but the past couple years as I've gotten more interested in how and when rail cars were built, I've been paying a lot more attention to it. And in the time I've been looking for it on cars, I don't think I've ever had one that didn't have it somewhere on the car. Okay, so there's inspection date and repaint date. $62.24, that's another ACF/ARI car size. ARI being the company that bought the business from American Car Foundry and is building the same type of cars, but at non-union facilities. See if this is ACF or ARI on the brake panel. I think it's probably ARI. Let's see on the brake diagram. That says ACF on the brake diagram, so this might be from the 90s. When you start getting in the 2000s, more likely to be ARI. But nowhere, I mean, if a car gets repainted and they don't put that little black block in on the paint, they'll usually have somewhere, you know, BLT, you know, 07 of you know, 97 or whenever it was built. So I'll have the build date just stenciled on the car somewhere. Not here. It's got repaint date, inspection date. No original build date. That's really weird. And to have two of them come in at once. After not having ever seen that before. That was really freaky. I imagine with the documentation and being in the computer age, you know, they probably don't feel like they necessarily have to have this thing stenciled on the cars, that they can keep track of their car numbers and document stuff. But it's just weird that two of them happened. The first two I ever saw like that came in from different manufacturers, different rebuilds that both happened several years ago. I mean, this paint job isn't recent. This car was repainted in 2016, right? And the Mississippi rail car paint job on that Westlake, that was a 2014 paint job. So, you know, it's not like they just started not putting build dates on cars. These have been running the rails, you know, 7 years on that other car down there, almost 8, you know, and this one 6 years. So just interesting. I'm sure it must have happened before that I had cars come in that didn't have build dates on them, but it was just before I started paying such close attention to it, because in the time I've been paying close attention to it, I've never had one before that didn't have a build date on it somewhere, somehow. Well, that's railroading. Bye for now.